You wake up. You look at your phone. There is an invitation waiting, plans forming somewhere out there in the world, and your entire body responds with the same quiet verdict. No. Not sadness. Not fear, exactly. Something closer to relief. You tell yourself it is because you are tired. Or busy. Or that people are exhausting today. But you have said some version of that sentence 100 times before, and it never quite explains the pull you feel toward your own front door staying shut. Here's the thing. That pull is older than your excuses. It is older than jobs, older than apartments, older than the idea of a house at all. Somewhere underneath the couch and the blackout curtains, there is a piece of ancient machinery still running, and it was never built for comfort. It was built for survival. For most of human history, staying inside a shelter was not laziness. It was strategy. Let that sit for a moment, because the modern story we tell about people who like staying home is almost always the same. They are introverted. They are antisocial. Maybe a little broken. That is the obvious explanation, and it is not entirely wrong. Except it does not fully work. Because the pattern shows up everywhere temperament gets studied, and it shows up early. In 1989, Harvard psychologist Jerome Kagan published findings in the journal Science after tracking infants as young as 4 months old. He exposed them to new sights, new sounds, new faces. About 20% of those babies reacted with intense distress, arched backs, clenched fists, before they had any concept of a bedroom to retreat to. Kagan called them high reactive. Years later, those same children were far more likely to grow into cautious, home-preferring, novelty-avoiding adults. That is not a personality quirk. That is a nervous system calibration, set almost at birth. So the question stops being why do you like staying home, and becomes something stranger. Why would evolution build brains that come preloaded with a preference for staying still? Now zoom out. Think about what a den actually is, biologically. A fox does not curl up underground because it enjoys interior design. It retreats because outside the den is where the hawk circles, where the larger predator waits, where every exposed second is a transaction with risk. Burrowing animals across the planet, foxes, rabbits, badgers, prairie dogs, spend enormous stretches of their lives doing almost nothing inside a hole in the ground. From the outside, it looks like laziness. From the inside, it is a cost-benefit calculation running thousands of times a day. And you are not so different from them. You just upgraded the burrow. Your brain still runs a threat detection system that evolved long before language, long before agriculture, long before the concept of a lock on a door. That system has one job. Decide instantly whether the outside world is worth the risk of entering it. Here's where it gets interesting. In 2005, evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Ness, then at the University of Michigan, formalized something called the smoke detector principle. The idea is simple and brutal. A smoke detector that goes off too often, over burnt toast, over nothing, is still cheaper to live with than one that fails to go off during an actual fire. Evolution, Ness argued, builds emotional systems the same way. It would rather you feel anxious 10 times for no reason than calm once during real danger. That means your body is not broken when it prefers the sofa to the party. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. Overestimating risk, because underestimating it, even once, could be fatal. But that raises an uncomfortable question. If staying home was the safe move, why did any humans ever leave? This is where the story changes. Because survival never actually depended on everyone doing the same thing. It depended on some people going out, and some people staying behind. Anthropologist Kim Hill, who spent decades documenting the Ache, a foraging society in Paraguay, recorded exactly this kind of split inside real camps. Not everyone left to hunt or gather on a given day. Some stayed. They guarded fire, protected children, maintained tools, tracked the group's resources. Hill's fieldwork showed that camp-based labor was not idle time. It was a second, quieter form of survival work, running in parallel to the visible risk-taking happening in the forest. In other words, staying home was never the absence of contribution. It was a different job inside the same system. That reframes something. The person who likes staying inside was not left behind by evolution. They may be running one half of an ancient division of labor that kept entire groups alive. Now bring that back to you. Maybe you are not avoiding life. Maybe some deep, old part of you is still assigned to camp duty, and nobody ever told you the shift ended. But let's give the skeptic real weight here, because there is an obvious objection, and it deserves more than a sentence. Maybe none of this is ancient at all. Maybe you just like staying home because home got extremely good. Streaming replaced storytelling around a fire. Delivery apps replaced the risk of the hunt. Central heating replaced huddling for warmth. Under that argument, your preference has nothing to do with Kagan's infants or 8 campsites, and everything to do with the fact that modern comfort technologies simply outcompeted the outside world. You are not primal. You are just comfortable, and comfort is new, not ancient. That argument is not weak. Comfort clearly matters. Nobody chooses a cave over a heated apartment out of nostalgia. Except comfort alone does not explain the anxiety part. It does not explain why some people feel actual dread, elevated heart rate, tight chest, before a simple social obligation, long before they know whether the outing will even be pleasant. Convenience explains preference. It does not fully explain a threat response. And threat responses are exactly what Kagan measured in infants who had never touched a phone, never seen a streaming app, never lived in anything close to modern comfort. So the honest answer sits between the two explanations. Modern comfort makes staying home easier than it has ever been. But the underlying pull, the reason staying home feels like relief instead of just convenience, appears to be older than the comfort itself. Comfort did not invent the instinct. It just gave the instinct a much nicer den to live in. It gets stranger once you look at what happens biologically when people do stay in. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, drops measurably in familiar, low-stimulation environments. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and social performance, gets a chance to idle instead of constantly modeling other people's reactions in real time. For a brain that spends its default state anticipating threat, home is not a retreat from life. It is the only place the alarm system finally powers down. That is not weakness. That is regulation. And regulation, for a body built by millions of years of scarcity and danger, is not optional. It is maintenance. The unsettling part is this. We built an entire modern culture that treats going out as virtue and staying in as failure, when the biology underneath suggests something closer to the opposite. The person constantly seeking stimulation may simply have a nervous system that calms down slower. The person content behind a closed door may have one that never needed convincing in the first place. Neither one is stronger. Neither one is broken. They may just be two old survival strategies, still running side by side, inside people who have no idea they are living out roles assigned before recorded history began. So go back to this morning. The invitation on your phone. The quiet, immediate no. That was never just tiredness talking. It might be the oldest, calmest voice you have.